Hello and welcome back to another wonderful episode at MSA. Glad you could make it. So glad to see you here. You know, this episode's it's going to be very controversial for a lot of people. It deals with some delicate issues. We're going to be talking about some of the laws that are being passed in California when it's resulting into the latest legislature on guns and what you can do with guns. So, you know, before we get into all this, I'm going to ask you like we always do, like, share, and subscribe. We need you to share. Very important. Definitely hit that little like button. It's not hard, just a little click, and away we go. So, getting into this, Gov Newsom back in September came out and passed some legislation in the state of California to raise excise tax or sin tax on purchases of guns or ammunition, as well as putting some gun laws into effect that have been sitting in their courts waiting for an approval. And as of today, a judge went through and said, you know what, we're going to go ahead and implement this, and we'll wait for the appeals court to kick in later. Now, we've got a clip that's going to show you a little bit about how Gavin is going to talk about this to the press after he signed these bills into effect. And again, it's got me a little bit on the fence on this one because I don't believe in gun violence, and I don't think that that's what the guns are for. They're for protection and for sport. But I also don't believe in governments handing down laws that take away your gun rights that were decided by people many, many years ago. So anyway, we're going to roll a clip, let you take a look at how Gavin Newsom's approaching some of this and what he actually has to say. And then, of course, we're going to come back and we're going to talk to you about that. So do us a favor, sit tight, watch this clip, and we'll be right back. See you in a minute.
Just express gratitude. I won't repeat a lot of what was said, except to reinforce my pride in this moment, pride in the leadership of those assembled here, in absentia, the Attorney General, his hard work and steadfastness in the space, to both senators and, of course, Assembly member that has stepped up his expectations of all of us to do more and do better and maintain our national leadership with this first in the nation bill that I just signed as it relates to this 11% excise tax. Look, California has led the modern gun rights movement back in 1967 for different and curious reasons that was initiated. California, recognizing its role and responsibility to do more and be better, really accelerated those efforts in the late 80s, 1989, establishing the first assault weapons ban in the nation after the devastation of a shooting that shocked the nation in Stockton, California. It's remarkable to look back on the Stockton incident and consider how routinized now that has become. I said it shocked the nation, and it compelled this state to action in 1989. In fact, it was Ronald Reagan himself. Many of the Republicans may want to look him up before they show up to the Reagan Library, that not only signed that first bill in 1967, but advocated in 1989 for an assault weapons ban. Ronald Reagan himself advocated for that assault weapons ban in 1989. A ban, by the way, that Judge Benitez, federal judge, threw out months ago prior to Bruin, saying the AR-15 platform is nothing more than a Swiss Army knife. More on that in a moment. That movement accelerated with Senator Feinstein's leadership in 1994. In the 1990s, California accelerated its leadership even more formally, and that's represented in the numbers that the Attorney General advanced. We saw a significant decline in gun death rate in the state of California between the years when the state asserted its leadership and moral authority, and we continued to lead that national conversation as we do again today, because good enough never is. We recognize humbly we're not solving in every one of the cases for an incident. We're solving for a pattern, and that's an important point. Inevitably, this national debate always is tripped up by saying, well, this law wouldn't have solved for this. But there is a pattern that's solved from leadership, and that pattern is being advanced here in terms of the strategies and solutions that we know statistically. The data bears fruit. Save lives and reduce gun violence and gun deaths. It's not an assertion. The facts are overwhelming. the work that we collectively and those that are assembled here with their moral authority have demanded of us have saved lives. And so we have a responsibility to do more and continue to lead in that conversation. But I will close, and we can have a conversation in terms of the Q&A more broadly on the specifics of the bills. But I do want to make the point that I referenced as it relates to Judge Benitez. And again, I've said this on many occasions. I'll repeat it on many more occasions. As someone who is the son of a judge on the California Court of Appeals, I'm not prone to want to call out a judge by name, but nor is a judge immune as a public servant when they wear that robe from criticism or critique. Judge Benitez, just a week or so ago, threw out, federal judge in San Diego, threw out California's leading bill, and one of our leading bills as it relates to large capacity magazine clips. You have to read the decision. You're not surprised, but read it to understand what we're up against. Judge Nelson, Federalist Society judge that was appointed by Donald Trump himself, threw out our nation-leading efforts as an 18 to 21-year-old to buy a long gun. Got to be, I think, seems obvious to anyone that if you can't buy a beer, you shouldn't be able to buy a weapon of war. But Judge Nelson felt differently. And of course, this was prior to Bruin. That case is also being sent back in a Bruin context under even more difficult circumstances as it relates to the Bruin test itself in both those incidences. But those judges have both gone on record in throwing out those federal laws. The point is pretty damn obvious to anyone who's paying attention.
Okay, we're back. You got to see the clip. Now, what I found really interesting about this is it's really tough to find a lot of information on this. This kind of just came out, dropped in real quick, and a little bit of the news, mostly written, and then it's kind of swept away. So let's just get into what exactly these bills are. So you have the one that's 11% sin tax. We already discussed that just a few minutes ago. There's another one in there that there are 26 places, special places in California, not meaning specific locations, but 26 places that you cannot carry a firearm, okay, which are hospitals, playgrounds, places of worship, zoos. There's 26 of them, okay? Now, you can't also carry a weapon in a commercial establishment that is open to the public. Now, what I'm meaning on all of this is even if you have a concealed carry permit, you're not allowed to carry weapons in these places that are being named off that these new laws are going to represent. What I don't understand is when he starts talking about Bruin in that clip, Bruin has already been decided by the Supreme Court, and it was ruled that your Second and 14th Amendment have protected you for the right to bear arms in public for your own safety. So I don't understand how Gavin can sit there and talk about how this is going to be a great step, hold first in the nation, when if you look at Bruin, you're just stepping on people's constitutional rights, which we're seeing a lot more and more of that all the time. I'm not calling out that gun violence is okay. That's not what this is about, so don't even go there. Don't think about anything like that. That's not what I'm talking about. All I'm talking about is your rights, okay? When you hear Gavin in there talk about moral authority, well, your moral authority is for people that will make laws that are just good and feel right, okay? Well, let me tell you what moral authority is. Moral authority, when I was younger, was they passed a helmet law for your own safety. They passed a seatbelt law for your own safety. Even though cars started coming out with airbags that you can slam into when you get into a high-speed wreck. But that wasn't enough. You still got to wear that seatbelt. And if you don't, you're going to get a ticket, which made revenue. See, and you have to understand, let's back this up a little bit. All these little excise sin taxes. California, let's see here, if I get this straight. California currently has excise sin taxes on cigarettes, alcohol, cars, gasoline, sun tanning, or tanning salons, just name it. There's a ton. It's everywhere. They're getting tax from everything they possibly can. Okay, and now they're going to put a bill in place that's going to say where you can and cannot carry a weapon. And I understand from a safety aspect, I get all that. I get it. But what I don't get is the stepping on the Constitution again. We keep seeing this more and more. It keeps happening. And I'm sorry, he talks about things about being a blue state and how they're being repressed and being pushed back to 1967 ways of living and all of that, and how the Republicans need to look up Ronald Reagan before they march down to the Reagan Library. Well, Reagan was against assault weapons, understandably, okay? Assault weapons. I get it. And why? But what Gavin failed to tell you was Reagan wanted to abolish the ATF altogether. You know, the guys that regulate your gun control and stuff, yeah, he wanted to get rid of them because he doesn't feel that our gun rights are being protected. He feels that the ATF was stepping all over our gun rights and trying to take our guns away from us, kind of like what Gavin's doing here. It's not taking our guns away from us. It's, hey, you leave them at home. By the way, while we let people defund the police, while we do all these other wonderful things, let drugs run rampant in the streets, and how we won't arrest people for certain amounts of drugs. We won't even prosecute people for certain types of crimes. He's not talking about that. And he made that clear when he said he's not going to take any other types of questioning on anything else. The other part that he really didn't make clear was his comment about 18 to 21-year-olds being able to purchase a weapon of war, a long rifle, or so they can't hunt, they can't have any type of sport. You know, I grew up with people that always went hunting with their parents and their grandparents, and they knew a lot about gun safety, and they were very careful with guns, and they always kept them locked up and ammunition away in the whole 9 yards. They weren't loose cannons. But again, at 18, you can go ahead and sign up and go die for our country, but you can't go pheasant hunting. It doesn't seem right, does it? Does that make sense? Is any of this making sense? See, first in the nation type of stuff means I'm making a name for myself, and I'm going to make it in a way that's going to step on you and make it hurt. And by the way, my Democratic Party is going to back me up on this, because the mainstream media, as I especially found out today, you can't find this stuff anywhere. You have to look it up, and there's only a select amount of articles written on it. And I'm sure in the weeks to come, it's going to get blasted everywhere once other news sources start to let it out, like we are today. But Gavin, you really got to think about what you're doing here, buddy, because you're stepping on people's constitutional rights. And we're seeing that more and more in this country, and it's getting ridiculous. And stop trying to bash the right, as you call them, and any Republican that's trying to stand up against your nonsense. Anyway, that's my opinion. Do us a favor. Hit it in the comments. Let us know how you feel about it. Again, this is, I completely stand behind Gavin Newsom when it comes to gun violence. I would stand right there with the guy, because I don't believe in all this rhetoric, all this crap that people are out there doing with guns. But I also believe that guns are part of the American way, and they're our right, and they aren't the number one cause of death in our children in the United States. The number one cause of death is drug addiction and fentanyl. Okay? That's number one. If you take all of the guns violence and you take all of the car accidents that have happened where deaths were involved, and you combine those numbers together, it still doesn't equal the amount of people dying from drugs. Okay? So how about we start putting our efforts towards that and stop getting on stage to say how wonderful our Attorney General did in helping us get these gun bills passed, and start looking into what the real problem is, and how about starting to stop the drugs from coming in and killing our kids? Let's start with that. Okay, that would be a great way to actually put some money to use. Anyway, again, my opinion, add some comments. As usual, do us a favor, like, share, and subscribe. We love it if you could share this. Help get the word out so other people can see it. Let us know what you feel about it. And as usual, day, night, morning, whatever it is, wherever you're at, I hope you're having a great right now. So anyway, take Take care. We love all of you, and we'll see you again. Have a good one.